Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I'm sure many of us in North America must have read Dale Carnegie, and I'm going to discuss why this book was important then and why this book is important even now. Dale Carnegie was an American writer, very good speaker, and his whole object, he was a teacher, and his whole objective was to develop people to increase their communication skills, their interpersonal skills, and their leadership skills. So he was a very good savant. He wrote a famous book, he became famous after that, was How to Win Friends and Influence People in 1937, just before the Second World War. And that book is famous even now, and Dale Carnegie is remembered for that book even now. Dale Carnegie also started the Dale Carnegie Institute in New York, which with the whole objective of mentoring people towards increasing their communication and leadership skills. So why? The first question we ask is why? Why do I need to win friends and influence people? That's the most common question, not a stupid question, right? And then we find out, dealing with the people is the biggest problem we face today in our day-to-day life. Dealing with our spouse, dealing with our kids, dealing with our office colleagues, dealing with our supervisor, dealing with our neighbors, dealing with our friends of the baseball team or football team. We have always problems dealing with people. What Dale Carnegie observed even then was that, you can hire people with very good technical skills in accounting or engineering or whatever was relevant then, but it's not easy to get people who also develop very good communication and interpersonal skills, and the people who develop those skills are the ones who rise in their career. That was his observation. And hence how to win friends and influence people is one of the most important skills which is required to be successful in the workplace. So now I'll just discuss some topics in the book which will be useful for everybody. Fundamental techniques in handling people. I mean, the book has much more. This is just it's like a movie when you make out of a book, right? It's much more, it's shorter than that. So the first technique he says is don't criticize. Criticism is futile. All it does, it hurts a person. Even if you know the person is 100% wrong, please don't criticize him. Because what he's going to do is he's going to resent it and he's going to fight back on it. And he's not going to do what you want anyway. And humans blame everybody but themselves. That is true. When we tell our kids you did something wrong, you can listen back how long they talk back to us, why they were right. And as adults, we continue that habit. So criticizing somebody is not going to get us anywhere. And he has an example. What I'm going to do is share some examples from the book to make this more, you can equate with it better. And during those days, there was a famous test pilot in Los Angeles, Bob Hoover. And while he was flying his plane stalled, and he realized that. And finally he could get down properly, but he realized the reason was the mechanic put a wrong kind of fuel in it, and he put a jet fuel instead of gasoline. The mechanic was really shivering because he knew that if this was an accident, the pilot could have been killed. I mean, anybody else in his situation, in Bob Hoover's position, would have finger pointed the pilot and shouted at him and screamed at him because this was not tolerable. But he knew that there was no point in criticizing after the fact was done, and obviously the mechanic didn't do it deliberately. So all he did was he told him, I understand you did a mistake, but I trust you and therefore I will allow you to service my plane the next time. And that way he won over the person. So that's the most important thing Dale Carnegie is telling you, is to win over the person. A person doing a mistake is an opportunity for you to win him over, not to criticize him. Second technique which Dale Carnegie says is respect other people and appreciate. We all want respect. I mean, whether it's a criminal or a lawyer or a doctor or a child or anybody, that is a fundamental law of the nature. We all want respect. Everybody wants respect and appreciation, and that's the only one way you can make other person do the things which you want. Give him respect and appreciation. Here is an example where Pamela Denham was a supervisor and she had some janitors reporting to her, and one of the janitors was not doing at all any good work. The other people were just jeering at her and making fun. But she realized that among all the bad things she did one good thing, and she slowly started praising her for the good thing she did in front of everybody. Slowly the janitor who was not doing good work started getting motivated, and she improved her work, and finally she was doing excellent work. So this is very important technique. Respect other people and appreciate. That's the only way you can make them do work which you want them to do. Arouse an eager want in other person. Now this is something fundamental. We always want to tell some person, we always want to preach in life, right? Do this, do this, do this. Do this, do this, do this. Because I know it's correct, right? And we always do that to the kids all the time. But then what Dale Carnegie says is, that's not going to work. If you want other person to do your way, show to the other person what benefit he or she is going to get by doing that. And unless you convince that person the benefit, is not going to do it. Like in this example, he's saying, arouse an eager want. If you don't want your child to smoke, if you keep on preaching him, don't smoke, he's not going to listen. You need to tell your child what, first of all, see what his interests are, whether it's baseball or tennis. Then you need to tell him, you know what, if you smoke, well, you will not be a very good athlete. That's when the child is going to relate back to you. So it's very important that when you handle people and you want them to do something, arouse an eager want in them. Become genuinely interested in other person. Like, this is a very good example that is true. Even today, the New York Telephone Company made a detailed study done, and I'm sure even now, most of the word which is used in the phone is I. Everybody's on I. Example he has given of a CM Naffle who was trying to sell something to another person in a chain store, and he said instead of trying to sell him, why don't you go to him and ask him about the benefits of chain store? And the chain owner was so delighted that there's somebody talking to me and debating with me. He not only talked about his own interest, he gave him the whole order. So, smile. Another ways to make people like, this is the simplest. Smile costs nothing. It happens in a flash and the memory of it lasts forever, but we don't use it often. So he's saying a smile does what? It says, I like you, you make me happy, I'm glad to see you. It's so simple. It costs nothing. So this is very important way we can make other people like you. A smile creates happiness in the home, fosters goodwill in a business, and is a counter sign of friendship. Remember a person's name. We have got so bad in that, isn't it? I barely remember my wife's name, that's all. So, a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Isn't it not true? When I tell a person's name, and so what he's emphasizing is, even if you can remember a person after some time and greet him by his first name, he says that's the best way you can win over a person. The person is so delighted that you met him after some time and you could remember his first name. So he's saying, remember a person's name is a very useful habit and definitely will maintain good relationships. Guaranteed. Be a good listener. So we always want to talk about ourselves. We always forget that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. But we always use the mouth more and the ears less, right? So he's saying is listening to other people is very, very important. Speak less, listen more, be empathetic to what other person is saying. That's what is going to make other people like you. How to win people to your way of thinking. Dramatize. This was something Dale Carnegie was saying, that if you think you're still not getting your point across, then people are not listening. And he doesn't mean shout and get angry by dramatize. So don't misunderstand that people say, I shouted and got angry. No, it does not mean that. He says dramatize. TV commercials dramatize all the time. You see all the time commercials, there are 2 soap powders, one shirt is dirty, the other shirt all of a sudden looks clean, and you all of a sudden you want to buy the other soap powder. You see 2 cars, one car going very smoothly and the other car going right, and then you say, oh, this car is the best. Why does that have an impact? Dramatize. So his whole point is, if you need to do it positively and dramatize your actions. That would be a very good example. And here he has given an example of a woman who could not get an appointment repeatedly with the supervisor. And those were the days when there was a typewriter and not the emails and all the fancy stuff we have now. So all she did was she wrote a simple envelope. She filled in with the blanks, please give me this, I would very appreciate. And immediately she got an appointment. So she dramatized the event. So dramatize in a positive way. How to change people without offense. This is very, very important, relevant for all of us. Like instead of begin with a praise if you need to correct a person. And I'm sure most of us do it here also. Like a barber leathers a person before shaving, right? So he says, whenever you praise a person, the person is prepared to listen and take your feedback. If you start in an offensive way, nobody is going to listen to you anyway. Be it a kid or be it an adult, because we all want respect. So he's saying, start with a praise. That's the only way you can do it. And here he has another very good example of a person not performing in one part of her duty as a bank teller, and a supervisor complicated on her customer skills, which she was good of, and showed her a better way of counting, and the person improved. So start with a compliment. Conclusion. Oh, it went pretty quick, huh? So Dale Carnegie, The Great Savant's book is relevant even today. How to win friends and influence people. People management, communication and interpersonal skills, also called as soft skills.